Hello, everybody.
Greetings, everyone out there in Internet Radio Land, and welcome to
Yes,
another week of Critique Corner.
that's right. With me, Daniel Parker,
And me, DB Fastbinder, aka Darth Bobcat.
and
And
yeah, oh, go ahead.
some weeks it's obvious in advance what our topics are going to be, and sometimes it feels like we hit Wednesday and suddenly there's like a big pileup of events for us to actually discuss.
Yeah. It just, yeah. Usually, yeah. It either comes out in drips and drabs, or it just dumps on us all at once, and then we have to figure out what we want to talk about, and where we just kind of went,
What we let go.
yeah.
Um, And yeah, there have even been a lot of weeks where we know exactly what we want to do by Sunday.
Hmm.
This was like, oh no, what are we going to talk about? I was even trying to think of things that weren't news topics
Yeah,
until they all suddenly descended at once.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, well, I think we've got some good topics to discuss, and one kind of unexpected. Ninja Toe is here, and good to see you. What shirt am I wearing? Uh, Marvel. It's basically like almost every Marvel character on here.
That looks like Alex Ross style.
I think it is. Yeah, picked it up at I picked it up in Disney World, my last trip there. So
Very nice.
yeah. Yeah. But thank you all for joining us. And what we normally do on the show, of course, is we start off with our thing of the week, which is something some form of media we've been consuming.
Hmm.
We do talk a little box office, and then get into the topics. And am I going first, or are you going first?
I'll have you go first, but however, I do have one little quick shill.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this week I'm doing a promotion on book 2 of Magpie Wizard. It's $1 in the US and £1 in the UK through Saturday. So if you've sampled the book before, or book 1, I should say, here's your chance to get on book 2 at a reasonable price.
Nice. And book two is book two is a good read. It's got a it's something happen is they do something very you think mundane. There's like a mundane thing that they do, and then it turns out to not be that way.
We were just supposed to go entertain the orphans.
Yeah.
It was our weekly community service.
Yes. And then everything goes horribly wrong.
Yes. But
But yeah.
but to get
So
into our usual
yeah.
thing of the week.
Yeah, so this is my thing of the week. I went back and watched a cult classic comedy, Clue. And for those of you who don't know, yes, it is based on the board game. And like a lot of people, I discovered this movie in the it was probably late '90s, when it was on cable all the time.
Yeah, I remember catching on Comedy Central a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, comedy. Yeah, it would be on Comedy Central at least 4 or 5 times a week. And it was also, I think they'd also have it on HBO or whatever the premium channels were, or one of the premium channels. But that's where I discovered it, and it's it is one of those. I mean, it's a funny movie. If you haven't seen it, it's got a great cast. I mean, you got Tim Curry, who brings it all the time. You got Christopher Lloyd, um, Madeline Kahn, who has like one of the funniest lines in the whole movie. Yeah, flames, flames coming out of my face. Who else? Michael McKean, who most people know him from Spinal Tap.
Oh,
Yeah, and then Martin Mull, who plays Colonel Mustard. He was in Mr. Mom, and then
mm.
if you watched Arrested Development, he was Gene Parmesan.
I did not, so I'll just smile and nod.
Okay. Yes, yes. But the movie was actually, I didn't really know this until recently. It was co-written by John Landis,
Hmm.
and his comedic fingerprints are all over this movie. I mean, it's just the wackiness and of course just the the way they all play off of each other is just really hilarious. Um, so who solved the mystery? Well, I guess it depends on the ending. um,
Yeah, this one had a unique gimmick.
yeah, yeah, it's so like I said before, I discovered this movie after it was in theaters on home video, and the home video release has all three the movie had three endings. The home video release has all three endings. But when the movie came out in the theaters, uh, it only showed one of the endings, depending on which theater you went to. And it's a interesting little marketing gimmick. It didn't help the movie though, because when it came out, it was just a total bomb. But
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah, yeah, but of course, you had people like me who, or people like us who discovered it, uh, when it, was on TV, and we're like, oh, this is a really funny movie, and then it's gotten a bit of a cult following to it.
Hmm.
If I guess I'll describe the plot a little bit. So the movie takes place in 1954, and a bunch of people have been invited to this mansion by Wadsworth. It was played by Tim Curry. He's the butler, and it's because all the people who are attending this party, of course, they're all using the pseudonyms that are from the game. Like Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, uh, Mrs. White, Mrs. Peacock, et al. And um, they're all at this mansion because they're being blackmailed by the owner of the mansion, a guy by the name of Mr. Body. And the guy who plays Mr. Body was actually he was a lead singer in a punk band. I can't remember the name of the band, but because I'm not punk. I don't listen to punk. But so they find out that they're all being blackmailed because they all work in Washington. They either work in the government or they're
Hmm.
affiliated with the government, and they all have secrets that they want to keep. And then of course Mr. Body ends up dying, and then comedically they have to figure out who did it and why. And it's really funny watching all the interactions with them, and the back and forths, and like Wadsworth, one scene with Wadsworth and Colonel Mustard, where like Colonel Mustard said, "Now, you assure me there's no one else in the mansion?" "No." uh you mean there is? You don't know there's anyone in the mansion? Or yes, there, yes, yes, there's no one else in the mansion. No. It's just, they do that whole back and forth. um
And I remember like there were scenes with Moranis's character in The French Maid. I think.
McKeon.
Hmm?
Michael McKeon, not Rick Moranis.
Oh,
uh, uh,
are you sure they're not the same person? Because that looks like the same person. But
it
now that you
looks
mention
like
that,
it.
he has a rounder face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He looks a guy. Yeah, he does look like Rick Moranis. Um, but
It's
yeah,
been a
yeah,
while
there,
since
yeah,
I've seen it.
yeah. There's a scene. Yeah, there is one scene where, yeah, like they're all searching the mansion, and they split off into pairs. And yeah, he's with the French maid, and there's a scene where they're both walking up the stairs side by side at the same time. Of course, the stairway is really narrow, so they're just like going through. And of course, the French maid is very busty and wearing a very low cut maid's uniform, and so there's that part of it. Um, which now that I think about it, this is probably a movie that couldn't get made today.
No, and I will just say, when you showed me this picture, I said, "Oh God, no! Don't tell me they remade it."
um, But well, speaking of remakes, I mean, we were talking before the show that Ryan Reynolds has been trying to get this movie remade, but I don't know if he will succeed or not.
I'd rather have him come out with a Deadpool 3 than a Clue remake.
Yes. Um, but yeah, this is it's a funny movie, and uh, I think it's hard for me to pick which ending I prefer. Um, so the one ending is Miss Scarlet is the killer, and then the second ending it's Mrs. Peacock, and then the third ending I call it the Orient Express ending where everybody did it. The only reason I don't like that ending is because Wadsworth is the bad guy.
Well, I mean, it is Tim Curry.
It's Tim Curry, yeah, I know, but he's always playing the bad guy. It's nice to see him play a good guy every now and then,
I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But the
But
wild
yeah, yeah.
Thornberries wasn't enough for you?
No.
Smashing! Yeah.
Yes. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's on the movie's on Amazon Prime. If you have an Amazon Prime account, yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched it in a while, or if you've never seen it, I give it a recommend. It's a fun movie to watch, and it'll keep you laughing and keep you guessing.
Excellent. So my thing is Deadpool Samurai, which is a manga series produced by Shonen Jump, licensing the Marvel character.
Hmm.
They've done a few of these. They actually had the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh, rest in peace, do a Spider-Man Iron Man manga at one
Oh.
point. I will say it's probably the best Deadpool comic that has been published in many years.
Mm.
It isn't quite up there with the Joe Kelly era. It's
Yeah.
which was which was kind of like where Deadpool got his start. It isn't quite as good as the Cable and Deadpool. It's similar to the Daniel Way era, though, which was basically Deadpool as a complete farce.
Ah.
So I would say that with Deadpool, he's a character who I enjoy. And this is going to sound weird. I kind of like him as kind of a hipstery, I knew him before he was cool way. Because my local library happened to have a bunch of old issues of his '90s comic from Joe Kelly when I was a teenager.
Oh.
So I knew a lot about it, and when he suddenly became popular around the same time that Marvel Ultimate Alliance came out, because it was kind of perfect storm. You had him without his voice acting, or you had a voice for him for the first time, really, and he
Yeah.
was a good character in the game, and he was like always making fun of the player and the other characters and things, so people appreciated that. So I think that's what really gave him his prominence.
Mm.
It was also around the time of early YouTube, so people could pull the scenes from their games and post them up online and out of context, and it was like, it's funny Spider-Man. See, proof. He knew
Mhm.
Deadpool from Ultimate Alliance. That game really gave. I don't think we would have had the Deadpool movie without that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise he was that Rob Liefeld character who Joe Kelly turned into a real character. Then Fabian Nicieza teamed up with Cable
Mm.
in the 2000s. But there's like a few different strains and versions of Deadpool. Rob himself says that he likes to think of Deadpool as kind of a more serious badass who doesn't break the fourth wall.
Mm.
Then you have like you can have complete Daffy Duck Deadpool, who's just completely, and I'm not talking like later on snarky Daffy Duck Deadpool where he's or Daffy Duck where he's angry that Bugs Bunny is always outshining him and everything. I'm talking like early Daffy Duck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you've got Maudlin Deadpool where it's like, I just want to die, but I can't. So much trouble in my past. Chimichangas, so much trouble in my past. Where like the silliness can feel tacked on. That
Yeah.
was like the Posen era, which was like the last one I really read. back before. Deadpool was like the last Marvel comic I was reading, and they ended that particular series in a way that just pissed me off so badly that I gave up. That was where I gave up on Marvel, really.
Yeah.
Wasn't even going woke, it was going bad.
Yeah.
But so this one I would say is more the Daffy Duck flavor of Deadpool.
Okay.
It's a 2-volume series, so really easy to pick up and finish up quickly. Basically, the idea is that Deadpool's in Japan on a mission from the Avengers to fight Loki, who has who's trying to get some sort of MacGuffin. It doesn't really matter what the plot actually is because it's a bunch of anticlimaxes. But they do things like they have references to the Wolverine Origins Deadpool. It seems like he's going to be the villain, but then he isn't. They have Thanos show up, and it seems like the Hulk is going to help him fight, and then Thanos takes him out quickly.
And the latest Deadpool comic I read was the first volume of Marvel.
That was the Posen, and I forget who the other one was, era. I was like Posen, who's friends with who's the guy who played Remy in Ratatouille?
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, he's Patton Oswalt's friend. So like, I think the way it had it was like he was providing the comedy side of it, and then they had another writer providing the dramatic side of it. And before I get into this, Ugly Media, thanks for joining us.
Yes,
how did the Deadpool run end? So the way that particular Deadpool run ended was you had Deadpool with all the friends he had made over that arc, like his daughter he didn't know he had, his hot vampire girlfriend, the ghost of Benjamin Franklin, and a few other supporting characters he'd met up with, are standing around, and suddenly it was in the context of some big crossover event. I think it was the Secret War they did, or it was Secret War, and suddenly you had Earth slam into another planet, and they were at like the epicenter where they met, so it looked like they all died. Now, this irritated me so much because this was, again, I wasn't reading the series week by or month by month. I wasn't reading the other comics, so I had no idea what this was. I was grabbing the occasional volume off of Barnes and Noble Nook, so I was completely divorced. So I didn't know that this was a big crossover event. Or I think I did. Actually, no. I think I had an inkling that it was a big crossover event, and I was like, "Screw you, comic! Give me an ending that has the context of the comic itself." Don't. Oh, I see what you're doing. It's just like the Daniel Way run ended with him shooting himself in the brain so that he would be different when he came back. And it just like that whole run was about him wanting to die, but this run actually had like a plot and character growth and things. So let's have him improve and grow. But no, we're gonna it's like the biggest rocks fall, everybody dies ever.
Oh jeez.
Now it is possible that I overreacted, but at the same time, I don't know. I have to, from everything I've heard about the Deadpool runs since then, I don't think I missed much.
He said Ninja Toe says he married the vampire and then divorced later.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was. Did they get divorced? I guess it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Deadpool Marvel can't have anything nice in his life.
Yeah. Marvel Now was the last time Marvel was decent.
But yeah. So back to this manga.
Yes.
so the manga is the Deadpool run that this most resembles is the Daniel Way run. And they have some spin-off characters. Specifically, they have Spider Sakura here, who you'll notice is a teenage girl with Spider-Man powers in a pink costume. Because, Sakura petals.
Yes.
And basically, it's a bunch of, how to put it, if it was any character but Deadpool, I would probably call this a bad manga, because technically nothing matters or pays off. It's basically him recruiting a team of local Avengers only to abandon them when it actually goes to fight. So you have like Spider Sakura over here, who is anticlimactically taken out right before the fight, doesn't even get to Loki. And you have this idol girl version of Venom who also who runs off because she realizes she has a concert scheduled, so she can't help even though she was going to, if I'm recalling right. Um, and it's like it's just a whole bunch of anticlimaxes. But because it's Deadpool, it kind of fits.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like what happens in Deadpool 2 when he recruits a team and then like they all die
Yes,
except for
exactly.
what's her name. Yeah.
Exactly. And like the last couple of pages, he he goes to the Shonen Jump offices to try to get his manga published, and uh, there he is, like photos of him meeting with one of the publishers, and then you have him meeting up with CB Cebulski of Marvel,
Of course it had to be the people.
and then they end with the volume with this reference to the last volume cover of Dragon Ball.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And then I would say like the humor is pretty broad and good. There are a lot of deep cut references to manga creators that I don't understand, so I just tended to just go, okay, moving on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, boy, this is a such and such manga, isn't it? Or it's like, what is? Oh, and also All Might makes an appearance
Oh.
because he accidentally calls the wrong number for reinforcements when he meant to call the Avengers. So it's just a good silly time. You're not
Yeah.
gonna again. It's probably the best Deadpool comic done since the Marvel Now era.
Okay. Cool.
So that, which isn't saying a whole lot, but you know, it's at least like it isn't how to it, it isn't Twitter writers
Right. Yeah.
and what they think is funny.
Oh, Domino, that's who it was. Okay. Domino.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
let's take a look see at some of the our usual quick dive into the box office. There isn't a whole lot new or interesting because it's January. This is where movies go to die.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Megan has crossed 100 million total.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought it passed the test that somebody at work had seen it.
Mm.
Although it probably a reasonable chance he might have pirated it, but
Oh, yeah.
still, he saw
Yeah.
it and he basically said it was a ridiculous movie, which kind of fit.
Yeah. Although, although the movie crossing 100 million, that explains why Blumhouse tweeted out that there is going to be a sequel.
Yes, because horror movies, by their very nature, tend to be pretty low budget. So
Hmm.
they're an excellent return on investment. What was the budget on this? Excuse me. Shouldn't have had a Diet Coke right before. Um,
Doesn't say.
the cowards don't want to give a budget, but it couldn't have been too bad.
It can, yeah. If it was a Blumhouse movie, yeah, it's not that big a budget. Uh, Megan is a killer doll movie.
It's basically like Chucky, but she has Bluetooth,
Hmm.
and she gets obsessed with her owner.
Yes.
As far as other new movies, we've got Plane,
Plane.
which
Which I've heard isn't too bad. If you like what I've heard is if you like schlocky B movies, it'll be up your alley.
you could do worse.
Yeah.
Okay, but man, whoever I swear that Plane was a placeholder name that stuck because they couldn't come up with a better one.
Yeah.
Then we have House Party, which both of these movies, I would say, I think it's fair to say that if a action movie starring Gerard Butler has barely or has not made $15 million after its first week, you probably didn't do too hot.
Yeah. A better title than The Dial of Destiny.
Indiana Jones and Plane.
Plane. Yeah.
Just in all caps, you have to shout it every time.
Yes.
But House Party has made half that.
Yeah.
Probably more likely to break even, but nobody was asking for a House Party remake. I don't think people even fondly remember the first House Party or its various sequels.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think so either. And of course, we found out before the show that this movie was produced by LeBron James.
Which makes sense because it is Warner Brothers.
Yes.
Oh, it's
And
already on HBO Max.
oh, jeez.
House Party is basically a series of 90s comedy movies about it's like a group of African American teens who
Yeah.
like well, I think I've never actually seen one, but it's like man, the parents are out of town. What kind of wacky things can happen at our house party?
Yeah. Yeah. It was the oh God, what were it was a rap duo that was in the original. I'm trying to remember their names.
Um,
The one guy had the hair going straight up.
oh,
Um,
I don't want House Party 2023 the numbers. I was searching for I want the real House Party.
yes.
Okay, 1990.
Kids and Play. Kid and Play.
Okay.
That was yeah. They were one of those I think like very one hit wonder
Yeah.
group duos that just and for some
Early
reason
90s
they put them
rap
in a
didn't.
movie.
Early
Yeah.
90s rap is one of those things where as soon as more modern rap showed up, it suddenly looked very silly and stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at you, Will Smith.
Yeah. I mean, it was rap that your kids could mostly listen to, but that's about all you can really go for it
Yeah.
or say
Yeah.
for it.
Yes.
And the only really significant release that's happening right now is A Man Called Otto, which released in 4 theaters around December 25th, so that they could probably so they could qualify for this year's Oscars with it'd be fresh in everyone's minds.
Hmm.
Um, I've heard good things about it, so maybe at some point, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's I'm gonna be honest. I'm I'm burned out on Tom Hanks.
I'm more thinking you're going to try to be poignant. I don't feel like poignancy right now.
Well, that's all he does anymore. That's the
That's
problem.
true.
Like I mean, whether it's this movie or when he played Mister Rogers, although I can't think of anyone else who could play Mister Rogers in a movie, but
Yeah. Toy Story for that matter.
Toy Story, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the man has a legacy, but doesn't mean we have to be excited for it.
true, yeah, but uh, but yeah, not a whole lot going on in the movie world, and I think did Avatar cross 2 billion?
Let's take a look see. Avatar, 1.9 billion.
Oh, okay, so it's close.
Yep.
It'll get there.
So, yeah, my prediction that it was going to flame out is looking stupider and stupider. Though, to be fair, when all
I,
the Marvel movies flatline after their
Flat.
first weekend, it seemed reasonable.
Yeah, and of course, like we were saying before, the first Avatar didn't have the pop culture impact that a lot of other movies have and have had, and
Yeah. But to transition out of this topic, it
yes.
has had a major cultural impact. Velma. That
Ah,
Mindy Kaling's Velma show has had the amazing ability to unite left and right in hating it.
yes.
And isn't that almost more important than making a good TV show? That
Yes. Yeah.
that's why HBO Max has, according to Screen Rant, made the bold decision of giving this train wreck a second series. And damn it, I thought we could get away with not talking about Velma.
Yeah, I thought so too, but no. I guess enough people hate watched it that they're like, "Oh, we're going to keep going with it."
Yep, that's why we don't hate watch things we don't like, people.
Yes, yes. Although, in to be fair, it is kind of a double-edged sword because it's like, okay, well, you say, well, if you haven't seen it, how do you know it's bad? And then if you watch it and then you see it, and they're like, oh, people are watching it, so people, we need to keep
Yes.
doing it. Yeah,
Yeah. it's also something where this is. I watched a couple clips. This is
Mhm.
not remotely expensive animation.
No, no, it's yeah. We were talking before the show. It's very Cal Arts esque.
Right. It's like a more adult version of CalArts. It isn't quite Bean Mouth and like well, it isn't the classic Bean Mouth meme, but it is
Hmm.
like very light on detail.
Yeah, yeah. Ninja Toe. Yeah, hate watching Beta season 2.
Yes, it's just like the what you do. You don't you don't feed it. You just realize this looks stupid and life is short. I think
Yeah.
I'll do other things with it.
Yes. And like you, I saw a couple of clips from the show. I saw the scene that in the courtroom where Velma demonstrates that Fred can't feed himself.
I also saw a clip where they just cut to two cockroaches screwing in the bathroom for no reason. It's like, man, this school sucks. Yeah, that's an actual scene in the show. First
Yep.
episode. I believe it's the first episode, possibly second.
Yeah. And okay, and, there's one thing I want to mention real quick. There's a scene in there where they show all the girls in the girls' shower, and they show like I think they show bare butts. And keep in mind, all those girls are high school; they're underage. Um, so I don't want if you're okay with that, I don't want to hear any of those people complaining about anime girls
Ever again.
ever again. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Double standards.
Yes.
Um, Now, I'll say that probably the reason they would consider doing this is because it is getting viewed, apparently,
Hmm.
or and it's also a cheap show to make. And also, there's a level where once you've started a production, it's cheaper to continue on with that production than it is to start a new show.
Right.
Because, like for every show that actually gets made, you probably have 100 pilots that get produced and somebody has to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. But
It's weird that they're letting it happen with this brand though, considering that how much Hanna-Barbera, which is a subset of Warner Brothers at this point,
mhm.
has fought tooth and nail to keep Seth MacFarlane's grubby hands off of the Flintstones.
Yeah.
That's Seth MacFarlane's greatest dream, it seems, is to make a more adult-oriented Flintstone show. And he has been trying for many years, and he keeps getting rebuffed, even when it gets close.
Yeah. That, yeah. That's well, probably a good thing. I'm not sure I would want to watch a Seth MacFarlane made Flintstones show. Um,
I think the other thing is that they are very much willing to experiment with Scooby Doo more than other things. Probably because they always have a Scooby Doo show in some sort of production.
yeah.
If not actively putting out episodes, it's only been recently canceled, and they already have the next thing.
Hmm.
So like they a few years back they actually did a pretty good movie that was the Mystery Inc. version of Scooby Doo teaming up with the Brave and the Bold Batman, and it
Oh
called
yeah.
back to those old crossovers specials.
Yeah. I remember. I've seen the images on there. Yeah. And
It's worth a
and
watch.
yeah. Yeah, and they did a kind of like CGI animated movie a couple of years back. Like, kind of got killed by COVID.
Yeah, and the sequel is one of the ones that got canceled.
Yeah.
Who thought Scooby Doo needed to be for adults? So here's the thing about it. Scooby Doo is one of those brands where the characters are all old enough that they're in a phase of their life where it doesn't take too much of a nudge to make it a more adult show.
Yeah.
Because like it's a very flexible premise. Remember those Cartoon Network specials like Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, where they suddenly started running into real thing after real thing after real thing after 30 years of it always being about skepticism and uncovering fake ghosts or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that technically is a complete violation of the formula, but it worked because you still kept the mystery aspect and had the characters be recognizable.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and Fred is the preppy guy, and then you got Daphne, who's his girlfriend, and then
Hmm.
Velma's the smart one, and Shaggy's the stoner, and they get
Scooby Doo's the dog for the kids.
Scooby Doo's the dog for the kids, and leave Scrappy Doo out of it. We don't need
Yes.
Scrappy Doo.
So and also they've have been willing to let things like Harvey Birdman happen
Hmm.
to the Scooby Doo cast. So it's less of a shock than I think, or it's less out of keeping for the series. The problem is it's just not good.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned before people on the left and the right both hate the show, and it's interesting because you have like um, people who are accusing Mindy Kaling of doing this as a psyop, and
Yes, supposedly it's so bad
yeah,
that oh well, she's clearly right wing. Never mind that the the only thing that she seems to disagree with the left on is possibly certain aspects of transgenderism, but the
yeah. I mean that. Yeah, there's no. Mindy Kaling is very very left leaning.
yes,
Um,
she just might have one disagreement. How dare she?
yeah, yeah,
What's hilarious about it is that it's so bad that people are going, is this bad on purpose? Because this almost feels like a right wing troll parody of what they would think we would do.
yeah,
Uh, it's Poe's law where it's hard to tell a sincerely bad thing from a parody of the same.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Ninja Toast says, yeah, and Shaggy's the one who goes through character arcs. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. uh, and again, like I think this is just going to be a temporary phase. We're going to have a more kid friendly Scooby Doo show up
Hmm.
very shortly. But at the same time, we've talked before about how you notice that they've been purging a lot of kid oriented animation from HBO Max
Hmm.
because they know that the HBO Max audience, because of the HBO audience, is more adult oriented. So that's actually the perfect streaming service to put an adult oriented Scooby Doo on.
Right.
Keep that off of Netflix or Hulu or whatnot where the kids will be watching.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it makes a sort of stupid sense. Like when you have friggin' VTubers talking about how bad the show is,
Yeah.
everybody hates this show,
Yeah.
but it's getting a second season because we couldn't look away.
Yeah. It's like a car wreck. You gotta look.
So
It.
congratulations, you've made it so that's financially viable for them to keep making more episodes of the show you hate.
Yes.
The-
Yeah. It's
uh,
it's yeah. It's the new Batwoman.
yep. The the funniest thing to me is that there's the rumor that it's going to turn out that Scooby Doo in the show is a black woman, and it's like that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. It's like the fact that it's believable that they would do that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
very it says a lot about the current state of culture.
Yeah. And that's like wrong on so many levels.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's like how the creator of Steven Universe had a character that she was contemplating putting in the show, who
Hmm.
was one of the few clearly black characters, and made a point in the character design. And this is a character who never made it past character design. Like made a note, character is illiterate.
Oh.
So you picked that character to be the illiterate one, huh?
Hmm.
How interesting.
Yes. Sort of like with the Cowboy Bebop live action when they made Jet Black, Jet Black a black man. Okay, yeah, you made a black man with the last name Black. Oh, and you made him a deadbeat dad. Way to go.
Who was when he wasn't? I don't think he didn't have a kid in the original, right?
No, no.
Congratulations. You were so woke that you wrapped around to racism.
Yep. Jeez.
Yeah, the best line I heard was, "Well, they're saying that isn't true. That Scooby Doo rumor isn't true," and the person was like, Yeah, well, I want it to be true. We need more content.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
so we're kind of out of the realm of everybody agrees it's trash, so let's point and laugh, to a
Yes.
couple of more contentious topics.
Yeah.
Daniel,
So
you're more the Top Gear guy than I am, so please enlighten us.
yeah. Okay. So Jeremy Clarkson he's one of the presenters, former presenter of Top Gear. And now he's got now on a show called The Grand Tour, which is basically like Top Gear, only with a different name. And he also has his farming show. It's just called Clarkson's Farm, where he's working on his. It's a working farm. He actually has a farm. Um, so what happened was last month around Christmas, Clarkson wrote an article about he wrote an article. It was in the Sun. He wrote an article about Harry, Prince Harry or Duke Harry or whatever he is, and Meghan Markle. And I want to read the what he actually said, just so people get an idea of it. Uh, he said, "Quote: At night, I am unable to sleep as I lie there, grinding my teeth and dreaming of the day when she, Megan, is made to parade naked through the streets of every town in Britain, while crowds chant shame and throw lumps of excrement at her."
Wow.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who probably don't, some of you probably might recognize that there's a Game of Thrones reference.
Okay.
But the problem was it wasn't. He didn't say it was a Game of Thrones reference. So
Also,
now,
that's a pretty extreme thing to say about any real person.
yeah, yeah. Um, and here's the thing: Clarkson he's no stranger to controversy.
Hmm.
He has said and done things for the last 20 years that have just been like really over the top. Not quite to this degree, but I mean, I mean, there's an entire Wikipedia page devoted to the controversies of Top Gear, and he is responsible for most of them, or he participated in almost all of them.
I'm sure that his friends are like, man, now we're gonna have to go to Paramount Plus to
Yeah,
drive our cars.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So the last time something like this happened with him was when they were at Top Gear, and he got into a physical altercation with a producer, and the BBC decided that they weren't going to renew his contract, and then that's how he ended up at Amazon. And the other two presenters, James Bay and Richard Hammond, both kind of said, "Well, we're a package deal. If he goes, we go." And so we kind of have a similar situation going on here. So um, Clarkson did he has he did issue an apology a couple of days ago on his Instagram page, um, and he apparently did send an apology email to Harry and Meghan on Christmas, and of course, uh, probably and I think the reason. A big reason why he finally did all of that was because his own daughter kind of said, his own daughter denounced him and said, "Yeah, no."
Right. It's one of those
Yeah,
things where I have no use for Meghan Markle or Harry at this point.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
I don't either.
Every time I hear them say anything, I just cringe, roll my eyes, and I'm glad that the Revolutionary War happened,
Yeah,
even though he's officially given up his claim on the throne, as I recall.
yeah, yeah. He has. Yeah, he's given up his royal duties.
Right. Which, okay, as an American, I'm generally against monarchy in general.
Mhm.
But I feel like if a country has a monarchy, then you're dude. In his case, it gave him everything, and you decide to let this woman browbeat you and drag you away from your family instead of doing, living up to your end of the ceremonial bargain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a yeah, that whole situation is just a mess. It's just a big mess, and
Whole
uh,
bunch of he said, she said bullshit.
right, yeah. Um, but yeah, but that aside, with Clarkson, so Amazon's cut ties with Clarkson, and so that what that means is they're only going to do so season two of his farm show is drops next month, and they're already working on a third season, and that's going to be it for that show. And they're apparently doing they have I think four more Top Gear or Top Gear, Grand Tour specials to film, and then that's it.
Mm,
Yeah. So he's basically I use the word canceled, but again it's kind of one of those things where like I mean yeah what he said is pretty inflammatory, and and yeah like, as much as I don't like Meghan Markle, that's not something I would say about her. uh,
no.
yeah, and
I was just writing up some documentation for a process at work today.
mm,
And what I said was, if anything you say in an email, don't say anything in a work email that you would not feel comfortable having read back to you at a lawyer at a defamation trial.
yeah. Yeah, that's those are words to live by. Um, and yeah, so Clarkson, he's done in Amazon, and of course I don't know what that means for the other two guys. I don't know if they're going to do the same thing they did when they left the BBC. We'll just have to wait and see. But and of course the other shoe left to be dropped for him is uh, hosting Who Wants to Be a Millionaire,
Mm.
because he's the host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in the UK,
They
and
still make that show?
yeah, they still make that show. Yeah,
Oh,
and but it's looking very likely that he's going to lose that job too.
yeah. I don't know. My gut says that this time around, they aren't going to follow him because this feels like last time. Like that's like a physical altercation. Who knows who started that? This is. Oof.
Yeah, yeah, and I know James May. I know his politics. He does not like the royal family at all. Um, but yeah, I think even he would say, yeah, you went a little too far there, Clarkson.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, it's I mean, and of course, like I said, he apologized, but of course, and what's interesting when he was writing the apology out, he said, anytime somebody gets caught in something like this, and they make an apology, it's never enough, and
Yep.
you know, and in his case, it's true. So
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think that. Yeah, I can't think of anybody who I think the world would be okay with you saying that about.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think this time he went too far.
Yep.
Uh,
I generally am against cancel culture, but this is a time where I'll say, okay, you know what? I get it. There are bounds of decency.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure you know with Clarkson, I mean, best case he has more time to work on his farm.
Yep. Good thing he diversified.
Yes.
Um, s- Speaking of people of Amazon cutting ties, though,
Hmm.
so there are major layoffs happening at Comixology.
Hmm.
And I think that this was kind of inevitable that this was going to happen because it's been on the wall for a while. They don't need a separate Comixology.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking over some of the things that people have been saying about their process. And what I keep thinking to myself is, Why do they have a person whose job it is to upload image files for Marvel and DC Comics to Comixology?
Mm,
As a independent writer, I can do that. I can upload my own files. So maybe they're going to make Marvel and DC do it themselves, or because it seems like they're just folding Comixology fully into the Kindle, even if that isn't as good of a comic reading experience.
yeah, especially if you have a black and white one.
Oh yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
But but it's one of those things where Amazon bought Comixology. It basically was the place to go for US digital comics for many years. They got forced onto the Kindle platform instead of their own personalized platform. And now
Mm,
that Amazon is having a bit of a crunch because, hey, it turns out the economy ain't so good right now. What do you know?
mm.
Um, it's just not great. It's uh, it's an unfortunate thing where Shonen Jump figured out that they could charge $2 a month for the app here in the U.S. Uh, and use it as a way to drive profits, because you can buy digital copies of it through their app. You can
Yeah.
buy physical copies of their books too, but it, it's just they can't, American comics can't seem to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I hate to say it, this was probably doomed to fail from the beginning just because of the way it was structured out. I mean, I mean, I get, yeah, I get when what Marvel is trying to do. Um, I actually preferred it a little bit better when Marvel and DC had their own apps and you could just download the comics from there.
Oh, they still do technically, but it's more expensive than Netflix.
Mm, yeah.
At least I think it's. I think it's. I guess it depends on the Netflix tier, but
Mm,
here's the other crazy thing about it is is that this is kind of okay. So as much as Comicsgate has been for years saying that the American comic book industry is doomed, I
mm.
think it might actually be doomed,
Yeah.
at least in its current format. Because want to say that in Japan, 70% of manga sales are digital.
Hmm.
Some really high number like that. They managed to figure out how to get that audience to want to read the subscription services or and pay for it, or they figured out how to get them to buy the copies digitally or what have you.
Hmm.
It's they managed to migrate the audience over. It comes down to business model, where at some point in the after the 90s Marvel bankruptcy and almost going away, they said, you know what, we're okay being a collector's market, even though that kind of almost killed us.
Mm.
And so now their business model is selling variant covers, and digital is gravy. When and it's a fundamental difference in what they're selling. Manga is selling me the story. There isn't an alternate cover of Deadpool Samurai. I'm holding it upside down. There isn't an
Mm.
alternate cover of Deadpool Samurai.
Right.
There aren't deals to try to get me to buy multiple copies. I went down to my Barnes and Noble, purchased one copy of Deadpool Samurai, and that was the transaction because I cared about what was in the pages.
Yeah.
Think about all of the think about all of the American comics that go unread
Yeah.
just because somebody immediately bags them and hoards them in the hope that some other idiot will want to buy them later.
Yeah. And yeah, Ninja Toe says because manga is cheaper and more frequent. Yeah. And hey Dave, good to see you.
Hey, Genuine Comics. We were just talking about the death of the mainstream comic industry. Welcome.
Yes, yes. But yeah, it's I tend to agree that yeah, this is a yeah, obviously horrible sign for comic book, mainstream comic books, which are, as we said, are either are on their has been on life support for years and is pretty much dead at this point. Um, and it the changing landscape of the industry is that, you know, I say people like me who are creating and publishing, my own comic books, and granted, it's, once a year or once every other year that I'm doing that, but it's, you kind of have to, I hate to say, they kind of have to be like movies at this point, as opposed to, like a monthly thing.
I think you could do a monthly thing, but I think
Mm.
what you'd have to do is somebody needs to crack the distribution model. They
Yeah,
need to
that's yeah,
because a 24-page issue of X-Men should not cost $4 if it's cheap.
yeah, yeah. That's the killer is the distribution, and yeah, getting it out to, and obviously, getting it to retailers, and you know getting it to local comic book stores, which those are struggling, and
Mhm.
of course, you have something, a platform like Comixology, which seems like a great place to go. If like me, for instance, if I wanted to put a offer, Angels Awakening digital copy on Comixology, I mean, I could certainly do that, but I don't want to. Um,
Right. And no, this doesn't mean that this is the end of digital comics on Amazon. It just means that they're doing a massive cut
mhm,
of the Comixology people, and I think it's just going to be whatever vestigial organ is there as they wind it down is going to get fully absorbed into the Kindle group.
right,
But this will be the end of Comixology originals. This will be the end of. It's gonna be. I think what we're going to see here is the end of the stupid idea that you can come out with a comic book, sell 5,000 copies an issue for 6 issues, and convince or less, and convince some bigwig in Hollywood, hey, you should buy our comic because you need content for your streaming service.
right. Yeah, and yeah, I don't necessarily like that model very much, and I don't,
It's it's one unsustainable model chasing another unsustainable model.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Ninja Toe says, you have to make the product cheaper in quality. Exactly. Yeah, and not focus on quantity of new books of one genre, and find a way for comics to be more accessible. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And manga's figured it out.
Hmm.
Now, there is an unfair thing where we're basically getting the cream of the crop brought over because there's a lot of one thing that's been interesting being a Shonen Jump subscriber is you realize how many manga actually aren't that great and flame out very quickly
Yeah.
because they're actually translating it day and date for release. So it's
Mm,
there've been a few series where I read it and it's like and then I look back a month later and it's canceled.
mm.
It like didn't get very far, and it's just because they try a lot of things. Not everything is going to be Spy Family.
Yeah. Yeah. Or My Hero Academia. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, obviously this is, purely business decision on Amazon's part, and they've got to, basically, you're cutting off the hand to save the arm.
Yep. It's just like how Google wasn't going to keep Stadia going when it was wildly unprofitable.
Hmm.
That died earlier this week. So there's been a lot of business that has been going on the theory that eventually a tech giant will buy you or need your product to fill in their own unprofitable thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's I think I think there's a lot of chickens that are about to come home to roost. The,
Yeah.
like what's really hit me is that when you think about how much peak TV we've been having, all the stuff for cable channels and all these different streaming services,
Yeah.
it's going to be kind of hard to get a job. It's going to be even harder to break into Hollywood for a bit because suddenly you're going to have a glut of capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely a quantity over quality that we've got going on, and it's
Yep.
that's never good.
No.
Yeah.
Now you can get away with it if you're selling potato chips. If you're trying to sell people stories, they're eventually going to want something good.
Yeah.
Like like a few good years of anime, about 5 or so years ago, completely cured any lingering interest I had in the American animation industry, which that's a whole other rant
Hmm.
where so much of the stuff like Gravity Falls is good, but stuff like Steven Universe and Adventure Time, they are basically appealing to the sad millennials who are still interested in cartoons
Yeah.
instead of kids.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think it. And obviously I don't like seeing it because I don't want to see the comic book industry fail because I mean it's a great it's a great medium, but
Yep. Yeah. Well, you mean a few publishers going out of business isn't going to kill the industry. What's going to happen is what's going to really do is light some fires under some butts and make people make some choices.
hmm.
What's really funny is the people on. I saw your boy Zach post on community and YouTube earlier, where somebody on Twitter had said some smart person could hire all of these Comixology employees and make a new service. Like, no, that's the comic book industry's problem. You keep hiring the people who have made the bad decisions that resulted in the crashes. The guy who killed X-Men, the publisher who was around when Marvel had its bankruptcy and the X-Men sales plummeted and he kicked Chris Claremont off the books. Bob Harris, that's it. He
Yeah.
went to DC and had a career there of ignominy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just you got to stop hiring people. Well, there's a lot of failing up in a lot of creative industry because people go, oh, well, we need somebody who knows how it's done. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's somebody who I think was involved in the Sega Saturn release, or killing the Sega Saturn in the
Mhm.
US,
Yeah.
then the PS3 release, and the Xbox One release, and the Stadia release.
Oh jeez.
Like, okay, you've killed 4 consoles, at least 3. I forget about if he's the same guy as the Sega Saturn, but 3, possibly 4 consoles. You're not allowed in the industry anymore. Bring back the blacklist.
Yes. Exactly.
Uh,
Oh jeez.
Speaking of broken business models,
Yes.
um, so last week we spoke about Wizards of the Coast and their attempts to wrangle more people or more money out of people with their open game license.
Hmm.
It seems like they have backpedaled, but because they said that they've made various conflicting claims. There was a claim that, oh, this was just a draft, we weren't totally done with it before, this was leaked out, we weren't going to do that, it was just an idea being bandied around.
Mm.
Huh. They really do want to get some sort of subscription model going with it.
Yeah.
Like I've heard about some sort of D&D unlimited type service where it's like $20 a month to get certain access to certain things.
Mm.
Which that's funny because role playing is like it has a high upfront cost when you buy the rule books, but
Mhm.
once you've done that and you have some way of playing the game, like to represent the game, like I play games where it's all intellectual and there isn't a grid map, but you can print off your own grid map, make and use popsicle sticks on stands to represent things.
Yeah.
It's about the cheapest hobby you can do. They want to monetize it like it's Fortnite.
Oh jeez.
But they have backtracked on those financial requirements. Like, hey, we hear you. They're even trying to go like, uh, here's their actual statement from Kyle Brink, executive producer on D&D. First, though, let me start with an apology. We are sorry. We got it wrong.
Sorry.
Our language and requirements to the draft OGL were disruptive to creators and not in support of our core goals of protecting and cultivating an inclusive play environment and limiting the OGL to tabletop RPGs. Then we compounded things by being silent for too long. We hurt fans and creators when more frequent and clear communications could have prevented so much of this. Starting now, we're going to do this a better way, more open and transparent with our entire community of creators. with the time to iterate, to get feedback, to improve. If this sounds familiar, it's because how we do it for the game itself. So let's do it that way for OGL 2.
Bullshit.
Yes. Any changes to the OGL will have no impact on at least these creative efforts. Your video content, your accessories for your own content, non-published works, VTT content, DM's Guild content, your OGL 1.0A content, your revenue, your ownership of your content. That's all from me now. And there was a thing where they said that we all won because that we'll be better now.
Oh,
It's like, no, you lost.
yeah.
You got shamed. You were caught being greedy, and now you have the fan base for a D&D movie on Twitter trying to boycott the D&D movie.
Yeah. And Ninja Toe mentions here. He says, "You need the player's handbook, which is $50."
Right, but if you compare the player's handbook, so it's like, I think to really play the game well, you need a player's handbook. I think there's a separate Dungeons Master's handbook, depending on the edition. It's been a while since I looked into it. And then there's like some sort of bestiary, so you have some monsters to fight. You get those together, like even if you were buying it for full price, we're talking like $150 for 3 books, and you can get going. And then that's something where in theory, you never have to pay another dime again. And yeah, there's like a whole bunch of nonsense. Holy Ninja points out there were rumors of people either being fired or jumping ship because of this OGL stuff. And now they're backpedaling because now some other publishers are making a much more expansive open game license, or an actual open source game thing with it. There's no chance of anybody trying to claw it back.
Yeah.
Oops, you done fucked up.
Exactly. Yeah.
This would be like if Microsoft hadn't backed down from trying to double the Xbox Live cost a few years back.
Yeah.
Except that with the CC people in charge of Dungeons and Dragons, the reason you can't monetize Dungeons and Dragons like Fortnite is because it is not a video game.
Right. It is. Yes. It is a tabletop game.
Yes. The way you monetize your tabletop game is you make up new things and sell them, or you put Dungeons and Dragons logos on a t-shirt and sell that, or you partner up with a video game company and sell them a license to make a Dungeons and Dragons game set in Neverwinter or whatever, a thing that you own.
Yeah.
You make novels, you make figurines so that people, and maps so that people can play the game more easily. You make modules, and you have to accept that a certain number of people are going to make their own modules that just plug into your game and you don't see a red cent, because that makes a strong ecosystem.
Yes.
You aren't a proprietary hardware platform. Hasbro cannot treat you in Magic the Gathering the way that Disney treats the parks to make up for shortfalls elsewhere.
Yes. It doesn't work that way.
Yep. They almost made it work with Disneyland backstopping all of the billions of losses on Disney Plus, but the Wizard of the Coast is a different beast.
Yeah.
You can burn out the fan base just the same way that they're burning out the Disney park fans.
Yep. Yeah. Even Games Workshop knows this.
And he said, but what he said before was, tabletop games are funded by products, not subscriptions. That's it exactly. Everybody wants subscription model revenue, and there are some products it makes sense for, and some products it just fundamentally doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
The one thing I could see a subscription making sense for would be, that might even be that Dungeons and Dragons subscription service I was talking about before. If you had something you could like bring up on Steam or in browser or whatnot, that was a cloud-based game table for people playing remote, that I could see people plunking down the money for.
Yeah.
But
But,
it's like how people are fighting back against, no, I am not going to pay a subscription service to keep using my dishwasher or my car.
yeah,
Screw you. That is hardware, not software.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, they don't seem to have a very good grasp of their own product.
Uh, Well, I think they brought in a new executive who was told to monetize the crap out of it in
Hmm.
much the same way that you can't sell a meaningful number of comics charging the same amount as a physical comic book because some shop owner in California got pissy and got a bunch of Facebook comic shop owners to dogpile on it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Ninja Toe makes a very good point. Gas is already a subscription service.
Hmm. Does it technically count as a?
Well,
It's not. It's a non-proprietary subscription service.
yeah, yeah. The money you spend is going to the oil and gas company. It's not going to the car company.
Right. In fact, the car company, the rat the rat bastards have all the incentive in the world to make you use as little gas as possible because that'll make you want to buy their car.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is obviously just a huge mess for Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, and it's horrible timing too because they got the movie coming out and
And the TV
it's
show.
and the TV show. Although I will say I didn't have really high hopes for either one of those.
Uh, I'm probably gonna still end up seeing the movie, so that'll be my thing of the week one of these weeks, but when it comes
Mm,
out. But it is not helping. And also Paramount Plus, you just have the worst luck when it comes to geek properties.
yeah,
Between Star Trek, Halo, and now Dungeons and Dragons, you
yeah,
guys are cursed. Stick to straightforward action stuff like Top Gun Maverick.
yeah, exactly. Ninja Toe says he thinks the movie looks fun.
Yeah, I think that I think there's a reason. Here's the other thing. So we talked about how we were surprised at how well Avatar is done because it doesn't appeal to normies, or excuse me, it does appeal
Appeal
mostly
to
to
yeah,
normies.
yeah,
Um, that movie could appeal to normies well enough because like, oh, it's a name I know. Well, that looks fun. Okay, sure. Let's give this a shot. Or
yeah,
oh, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was in high school. Yeah, sure, I'll go try out a movie.
yeah. Well,
So it could
yeah,
be that plumber fantasy in the same way that Avatar is plumber sci-fi.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully they don't still have the bad taste in their mouth from the last Dungeons and Dragons movie.
That's true.
And Ninja says, "Does Paramount at least have other shows that are decent, like Transformers or Spark?" I haven't watched that yet.
I don't know that I want to. What I
Yeah.
think I've kind of realized with Transformers is that I'm pretty strictly. I care about Beast Wars and Beast Wars accessories. I'm not even sure if I want to go see that live action movie coming out this year about Beast Wars.
Mm,
Like I've tried a variety of times. What I've kind of realized is that now this is Ninja. I don't. I'm not. This is no knock against you or anything. I just think that I didn't grow up with Transformers enough to care about it.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Paramount Plus has other good stuff like the new Beavis and Butthead,
yeah.
and it's got Tulsa King, which I recommend 4 episodes in.
Hmm.
I haven't gone back to watch more of it because Persona 5 has been dominating my life. One more encounter. Got to get to the next safe room.
Yeah, yeah. It does that. Yeah, yeah. It pulls you in and it won't let go.
I've had a lapse in my publishing schedule and editing time because
Yeah.
of Persona 5. Okay.
Yeah,
You-
he's not a
okay. Just I just wanted to be clear. There's no knock against people who are super Transformers nerds. I
mm,
a realize you ever watch something and you realize, holy crap, is that what people who don't like this thing I love think it is?
mm,
That's kind of been my real like a while back when someone was trying to explain the Fate Night lore to me. Like, oh, the
yeah,
convoluted order you have to play the games in. It's like, and it's like not very good fiction to start with. It's like,
yeah,
holy crap. is this what it sounds like when I talk about Marvel Comics to people
Yeah.
who don't know anything about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other one was like when I watched episodes of Doctor Who, and it's like, this is important to people? Why? Holy crap, is this what it's like when I talk about Star Wars with people who don't like Star Wars?
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah, I have this. I get the same way with Star Trek. I'm like, I describe Star Trek to people, and they kind of look like, yeah, all right, yeah,
But no, it's really cool.
yeah.
You got to understand.
But Star Trek is it's laced with allegory and subtext, and
Haha, beam
like,
me up, Scotty, right? That's that show.
yeah.
And then you die a little inside.
Yes. And Ninja Toe says he's a Unicron era fan, except for Energon.
So the 2000s animes.
Yeah. Um, I watched some of the original, whatever it was, Generation One, because my brother was really into Transformers.
Mhm.
He had all the toys, and so I watched some of that, and then I watched Transformers Prime, which was okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the one that that was the one that came out at the same time as or as My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and
Mhm.
Hasbro was kind of surprised that they had more male audience for My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic on the same network.
Yeah.
Wait, what just happened?
Yeah. What? Yeah. But yeah, that's just the way it goes sometimes, and
Yep. But I think that what we're seeing is the continuation of the kind of collapse of a bunch of unsustainable business models
mhm,
in quick succession, and people trying to and the failure of people to force certain other business models to come into existence.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully people will come to their senses and not do that anymore.
Holy crap, Daniel! You know what I just realized?
What?
There is a subscription model for Dungeons and Dragons that is staring them right in the face. That would
Mhm.
be really easy to set up. So
Oh.
Ninja Toast spoke earlier about how one of those books, like one of those starting books, costs $50.
Mhm.
Think about all of the different editions and like all the different editions, rule books, and everything else that exist
Yeah.
out there, like all the different modules and things like that. Now they stopped doing digital copies because they realized people were just scanning them and sharing them, it being an
Uh,
RPG.
yeah.
But imagine if you had a subscription service where you could, like, that was kind of like closed off like Kindle or Nook, where it's like, okay,
Mhm.
it's $5 a month. You get access to everything in fifth edition. Or if you want everything in fourth, or this much for everything in fourth edition, this much for everything in third edition. Whatever you want to play, you have
Uh,
access to it.
hmm.
That's a little less convenient because, and it's like it's per person. So it's like, if you have 5 players at a table, they're each paying their $5 a month. It might encourage them to pony up and buy a book,
Mhm.
but
Hmm.
it's a way so that you can digital distribution, so it costs very little to distribute those PDFs or other files. Um, you're making less money, or I should say it's a steady drip income
Mhm.
that over time would, in theory, make up for a loss of sales in the books. And it would make it so that if you wanted somebody, if somebody wanted to make something obscure, but the book is out of print, they can just go subscribe to the service.
Yeah.
If this doesn't already exist, you idiots,
Yeah.
that's how you would have gotten people used to paying a subscription service to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
And
So you're
uh,
asking them to expand D&D Beyond. I've heard of D&D Beyond. Haven't played RPGs in years, so I don't know what it actually entails. But if that is what it is, then okay, they're less idiots than I thought they were.
yeah.
But it sounded like there was more nickel and dimey and stupid than that.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, what you were just proposing makes too much sense right now, and I don't. There
I
aren't enough
guess.
people in there who don't know what sense is.
Yeah, D&D Beyond is an official tool set for 5th edition. Create characters in seconds, build and run combat accounts on the fly, and start your collection of official books with. Okay, so it does. It seems to sort of already exist.
Hmm.
Okay, and it's okay. The reason I didn't hear about it is because my COVID killed my D&D group, and all the articles from here are from 2022. So okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Then they're doing something right, I guess.
Well,
Never mind. I'm
yeah.
not as creative as I thought I was.
Oh, well, although from when
Okay, D&D
yeah,
Beyond is a subscription service to host unlimited characters. You still have to
okay,
buy digital copies of the books. Okay, so my idea is clever.
yeah, definitely not $5. Yeah,
Right. It's okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, see, I'm showing my out of touchness with the RPG space.
Well, well, it could work for another RPG game. You know,
Yeah, though I think that Dungeons and Dragons is about the only one that has the breadth of content to make that worthwhile.
true. Yeah,
Ah, well.
yeah. Well, all right. Well, I think we have exhausted these topics for the night.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it as always. Of course, do all the YouTube friendly stuff. You know, hitting the like button,
Hmm.
subscribe if you haven't already, hit the bell. If you're watching on replay, leave a comment, and we will see you next week.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. We always think that we're not going to have enough to talk about, and we go an hour and a half.
I know. It always works out that way.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.